Title: Life Millions of Years Ago. How Prehistoric Humans Survived and Thrived. Imagine a world without names. A world with no cities, no roads, not even language as we know it. A world ruled by instinct and the raw, untamed power of nature. This was Earth millions of years ago, and it was the dawn of humanity. For our earliest ancestors, every single sunrise brought a new, desperate struggle for existence. They were small, slow, and weak compared to the titans of their time. They faced giant predators, radical climate shifts, and the constant, gnawing threat of starvation. The fact is, most species that have ever lived are now extinct. By all accounts, our ancestors should have been one of them, and yet they weren't. They were pushed to the absolute brink, but they held on. This is the story of how they not only survived, but laid the groundwork for our own existence. How they fought, innovated, and adapted to ultimately conquer the planet. This is the story of us. The fundamental problem they faced was energy. To grow a larger, more complex brain to vary organ, that would one. They solved all these problems. They needed a diet packed with calories and fat. Plants provided sustenance, but not enough. The real prize was meat and marrow, but it was locked away. A thick animal hide could defeat bare hands, and a massive bone was impenetrable. This was the evolutionary wall they were up against. These tools were brutally simple, just sharp-edged rocks, but at the time, they were the key to a whole new world. With a sharpened flake, an early human could do what teeth couldn't. Slice through tough hide and cut away strips of meat with a heavy chopper. They could smash open long bones and get to the rich, fatty marrow inside the perfect superfood for a growing brain. This wasn't heroic hunting just yet. It was clever, opportunistic scavenging. They'd watch vultures circle, follow predators from a safe distance, and then, when the coast was clear, rush in to claim the scraps. This cognitive leap, seeing a two on a shapeless rock, planning the steps to create it, and using it was the first critical step. It was the moment our ancestors stopped being subjects of their environment and started becoming agents of change. The simple act of cracking a rock was the first glimmer of ingenuity that would define the human journey. For over 1 million years, scavenging was a solid strategy. But as hominins evolved, especially with the arrival of Homo erectus around 1.9 million years ago, things changed. Their bodies got larger, their legs longer, and their brains became even hungrier for energy. Scavenging was a game of chance, and it couldn't reliably feed a growing community of big-brained ancestors. The problem had scaled up. They needed a more consistent, high-energy food source. The solution was one of the most audacious in the history of life. Stop waiting for leftovers and start hunting the source. This was no easy task. The world they hunted in was populated by giants, herds of enormous elephants, massive deer, and wild cattle weighing nearly a ton. These animals weren't just potential meals, they were lethal. A single charge or kick could be the end. How could a group of small, clawless primates possibly hope to kill such creatures? The answer lay in a trifecta of revolutionary assets. Better technology, social cooperation, and a weirdly unique superpower, the ability to sweat. Homo erectus refined their tool-making, graduating from simple flakes to the iconic Acheulean hand axe. This symmetrical, teardrop-shaped tool was the Swiss Army knife of the Paleolithic. It could butcher, dig, and, once hafted onto a wooden shaft, become a truly formidable spear. Picture the prehistoric night. Absolute, crushing darkness, broken only by the cold light of the moon. The world didn't just get quiet. It came alive with the sounds of nocturnal predators on the move. For early humans, night was a time of pure vulnerability, a time to huddle together in fear and hope for sunrise. The problem was twofold. The cold could kill you, and the darkness hid things that wanted to kill you. The solution came in a flash of orange and a plume of smoke. Fire. The control of fire? Perhaps as early as 1.5 million years ago, was arguably the single greatest turning point in human history. At first, our ancestors probably didn't make fire. They harvested it nabbing embers from a lightning strike or a natural brush fire and carefully keeping it alive. The ability to create fire at will would come much, much later. But even this early control was transformative. Its first gift was safety. A crackling campfire created a circle of light and warmth, a protective barrier that kept predators like cave lions and saber-toothed cats at a distance. For the first time, our ancestors had a reliable defense that reclaimed the night. This new security might have even allowed them to sleep safely on the ground, a crucial step in our evolution. Then there was the obvious gift: warmth. Fire allowed hominins to survive cold nights and push into colder climates, dramatically expanding their territory. It was a portable piece of the tropics, a shield against the ice ages. But the most profound gift of fire was what it did for our diet. Cooking is basically external digestion. It breaks down tough fibers and complex proteins before they even enter the body, making food easier to chew and digest. It also kills nasty bacteria and parasites in raw meat. This meant our bodies used far less energy processing food, freeing up those precious calories to be used elsewhere, most importantly, to fuel our ever-growing brains. The cooking hypothesis suggests this is directly linked to the dramatic increase we see in hominin brain size. Fire transformed more than just food and safety. It transformed society. The hearth became the heart of the community. Around the fire, the day's food was shared. The light extended the usable hours of the day, creating time not just for making tools, but for social interaction. It was here, in the flickering firelight, that stories may have been shared, bonds strengthened, and knowledge passed down through generations. Fire was a crucible, not just for cooking meat, but for forging culture itself. It turned a campsite into a home. Section 4. A place to call home. Shelter and society. The fire provided a warm, central point, but it wasn't enough to shield our ancestors from biting wind, driving rain, or heavy snow. To survive the full force of the elements, they needed effective shelter, and with longer childhoods and more vulnerable infants, they needed a secure home base to care for and protect the young. The solution evolved from just using what they could find to deliberate construction. The earliest shelters were natural formations, caves and rock overhangs that offered a ready-made defense. These were prime real estate, and evidence shows some caves were used for hundreds of thousands of years by generation after generation of hominins, including Neanderthals. But you can't always find a convenient cave. As our ancestors spread across the globe, they learned to build their own shelters, showing incredible resourcefulness. Some of the earliest known constructed dwellings date back nearly 400,000 years. At sites like Terra Amata in France, archaeologists found evidence of oval-shaped huts made from a framework of saplings and branches, likely covered with hides. A hearth sat at the center, protected from the wind by a low wall of stones. In the frigid landscapes of Ice Age Europe, they innovated with what was plentiful: the bones of the giant beasts they hunted. In places like Ukraine and Russia, archaeologists have unearthed incredible shelters built from mammoth bones. Huge tusks formed arched doorways, while skulls and leg bones created sturdy walls, all likely draped in animal hides to create a warm dwelling capable of withstanding Arctic winds. These shelters were more than just primitive houses. They were a sign of an increasingly complex social world. Survival wasn't a solo effort. It was a group project. Within these home bases, a division of labor likely emerged. Some would hunt, while others tended the fire, crafted tools, and cared for the young. This communal living was essential. With high child mortality rates, shared parenting where older kids and other adults helped care for infants was a key strategy for success. The group was the ultimate survival unit. It was a library of collective knowledge, a network for defense, and a support system for raising the next generation. The development of empathy, cooperation, And complex social bonds wasn't a luxury. It was a biological imperative. Our ancestors learned that their greatest strength wasn't a single tool, but each other. Creating a home, whether in a cave or a hut of bones, solidified the community and paved the way for the cultural complexity that would become the hallmark of our species. Section 5. The Unseen Adversary. Adapting to a changing world. Perhaps the greatest challenge our ancestors faced was an enemy they couldn't fight with a spear or scare off with fire. It was the planet itself. The prehistoric world wasn't a stable backdrop. It was a place of dramatic, often violent change. Over millions of years, the climate fluctuated wildly. Ice sheets advanced and retreated. Sea levels rose and fell, and lush forests could become arid grasslands in just a few thousand years. To survive meant constantly adapting to new problems in new environments. The ultimate problem was instability. The solution was humanity's defining trait: incredible behavioral flexibility. While other animals were biologically fine-tuned for a specific niche, our ancestors became specialists in adaptation itself. You can see this flexibility written all over the archaeological record. During cold glacial periods, Neanderthals in Europe hunted cold-adapted animals, like reindeer and mammoths. When the climate warmed, their diet shifted to red deer and other forest animals. They weren't locked into one way of life. They adjusted. This flexibility went beyond diet. They developed diverse toolkits to exploit a wider range of resources. While early HomoSapiens and Denisovans were the first to create eyed sewing needles for fitted clothing, Neanderthals had their own clever solutions, like using sharp bone awls to punch holes in hides so they could be laced together. This constant innovation wasn't always driven by crisis. Sometimes, technology and hunting strategies changed even without a major environmental shift, suggesting an inbuilt drive for creativity and improvement. They weren't just reacting, they were proactively making their lives better. Underpinning all of this was the evolution of the human brain itself. The most intense period of climate fluctuation over the last 800,000 years coincides with a dramatic growth in hominin brain size. This wasn't just about being smarter. Specific cognitive skills were being selected for: a sharp memory to recall resources across seasons, the ability to plan and mentally simulate a hunt, and the social intelligence to navigate complex group dynamics and share knowledge. Our ancestors evolved to become supreme problems. While other species were trapped by their biology, we were freed by our minds. This ability to learn, change, and adapt is what allowed a small African primate to spread to every corner of the globe, surviving ice ages and supervolcanoes to become the last human species standing. Conclusion! From a fragile creature on the African savanna to the master of a planet, the journey of our prehistoric ancestors is the greatest survival story ever told. For millions of years, they lived on a knife's edge, facing threats that would have wiped out a less resilient being. They stared down predators, endured climate shifts that remade their worlds, and solved the fundamental problems of existence: food, warmth, shelter with nothing but their minds and the strength of their communities. The solutions they found became the pillars of our world. That first sharpened stone was the birth of technology. The first coordinated hunt was the start of complex cooperation. The first controlled fire didn't just cook meat, it lit the way for culture and community. The first shelters weren't just protection, they were the first homes. But their greatest innovation was themselves. They evolved an unmatched ability to adapt, to change their tools, their strategies, and their societies to meet any challenge. They proved that the ultimate key to survival isn't fangs or speed, but flexibility, ingenuity, and the powerful bonds we share with each other. Every time we solve a problem, work together on a team, or gather with friends to share a meal, we're echoing the strategies forged in our deep past. The resilience, curiosity, and social connection that ensured their survival are the inheritance they passed on to us. They survived so that we could thrive, and their story is, and always will be, the foundation of our own. What do you think was the single most important innovation for our ancestors' survival? Was it the first tool, controlling fire, or building social groups? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found this journey into our deep past fascinating, be sure to like this video and subscribe for more stories about our incredible history.